Hey, it's Pastor David here with our Thursday at 3 update. And today I want to think for a few minutes about digital church. I have a question. How has the church being on social media, being digital, affected your faith practice? How has having the worship services online, having small groups, committee meetings over Zoom, affected your practice of faith as a disciple of Jesus Christ? Of course, having the ability to broadcast our worship services and to meet online was a lifesaver during the height of the pandemic. I remember well the weeks and months in the gym with just a couple of people as we were putting together the worship services, and how odd that felt to be preaching in front of an empty room. And so I'm grateful for its presence during the pandemic. The height of the pandemic. What I'm coming to see is that digital church is having a greater impact on our faith practice than even the pandemic itself. That there are some implications of having the worship services online, that having our groups meet online, that are shaping the way we are as a community of faith, that is far greater than almost anything we've seen in recent years. This past Sunday, I had several conversations that fed into this idea. First was with a member of our church who let me know that his parents had been worshiping with us online. They live out of state, and he was surprised to hear it and was glad. They were talking to him about some of the sermons, and they were able to join us and be a part of that shared experience as a family because we're online. And I'm hearing that more and more. I hear that quite regularly. I know that we each week have people check in from California or from Minnesota. I know we had a member that traveled to Singapore and actually joined us for worship, though I'm sure it wasn't at the exact same time because of the time difference. Second conversation had to do with a small group leader. He has a group that meets on Tuesday nights, a fellowship community group that studies together and lives together, life out, faith in Jesus Christ. And they're looking for a few more folks. They meet online on Zoom because a number of them have small children and there's bedtime, and it's just more conducive for them and their schedules to do that. But they have a vibrant relationship, a vital relationship of doing life together. And they're looking for more that would like to be a part of that type of community. The third conversation I had, and there are actually 5 or 6, but the third one had to do with a member who was remarking that he didn't recognize a lot of the new faces that were coming to church these days. That 15 years ago, he would come and he would sit in his pew, and it would be pretty much the same people. He would recognize the same people, and that has changed. That he doesn't wind up sitting next to the same people each week in his chairs or in the pews. He comes to both services at different times, and I think that's true as well. I think that digital media has absolutely shaped, along with the pandemic, our worship habits. And that has changed how we experience things. So the first, so 3 things, three observations about that. And the first is that it actually has changed who we recognize and who we sit with on Sunday morning when we gather for worship. And that, trends through the pandemic, what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, average churchgoer in America these days now attends 1.7 times a month. In the last 20 years, the number of Americans who profess to be members of a church has dropped by over 30% from 2022, from maybe close to 70% to just about 45% of people say they belong to a church. And so that's an impact. Folks are worshiping online. Here's an interesting figure. This last week in our council meeting, we were looking at the numbers, the dashboard for our online views, and we realized that if we count one view as one person, that is, the people that get online and watch our sermon on YouTube as one person, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's a family of 4, sometimes it's somebody just watches for a few minutes. Count it as one person, and by the way, the conference counts a view as 1.5 people, but we're counting as one person. If we count each view as one person each week, we are at 98% attendance of our church worship according to pre-COVID. That is, we are at 98% of what our worship attendance was pre-2019, which is a staggering figure to me. that we have rebounded that way. We just rebounded differently. And that has implications. It has good implications in the sense that it helps us be able to worship when we're not able to be physically present. We're out of town, we're not well, something has happened, but we're able to still get in and touch in with our family. And it has some challenges, which is that it allows me to isolate myself further from my church family, from the body of Christ, and allows me to only sit next to people that agree with me. I can turn those I don't agree with out, just turn them off. And so there's some ups and downs with that, but I thought I'd share that figure of 98% with you. Second way that it has impacted our church and our faith practice is that it makes us much more aware and much more careful and intentional about what we say during the worship service. We're being watched by people that are not members, that are not part of the family. We're being watched by people who visit. In fact, every week I meet someone who's visiting church, and almost inevitably they say, "We watched your church 3-4 weeks, 2 or 3 months before we came to check it out. We want to see who you were." And so we're being watched by people outside the family. And when things happen in the community, when things happen in our world, then we are now faced with whether we say something or not. If we don't say something, then that creates and broadcasts an image of the church. If we do say something, that also broadcasts an image of the church to those outside the family. And so the days of kind of taking care of church business in-house and kind of addressing it together as a people, those days are gone. We are now in conversation as a family with those outside the family. And that actually is a good thing in terms of it forces us to look at how relevant we are and what we are saying to those outside the family. It's also a challenging thing. It means that sometimes while we're in the family, we're not always comfortable with what's being discussed, or it may feel like we've already discussed this. But again, we have a much broader audience. It does, third, create opportunity for broader participation. As I mentioned, people do look at the church and do check us out first. It allows us to have meetings and community groups in a broader context. It allows us to broadcast information and more information than, getting your monthly newsletter. Now there is stuff weekly, and it's really up to us to decide what we get, but the information is there. And if you've been on social media like Instagram or Facebook, you'll see that we are quite prolific in putting an image of who our church is out into the community. So, it affects attendance, it broadens the net of participation, it changes the way we talk about who we are and what we believe in the broader community. So digital church has impacted who we are and our faith practice. And so the question I think that I have is, what ways can we leverage digital media? There are churches right now that are actually employing digital pastors that work with and serve and minister to those who participate through the media and not in person, and help them join and be a part of the family. So what ways can we leverage social media, digital media, being digital? And in what ways do we need to correct some of the holes that it creates in terms of proximity and being together and having that sense of looking each other in the eye and being relational in a way that we can't just tune it out. So we have some challenges. It's here to stay. Opportunity is here to stay. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts. I'll see you in church on Sunday. God bless.